into the NASCAR Live Before Lock show right here on Awesemo.com. We are sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. We'll tell you a little bit about Monkey Knife Fight later on in the program. But of course, we are here to talk about today's Pocono Organics CBD 325. Well, some of my letters there. Of course, race started here in just about an hour from now. Of course, we got a doubleheader of NASCAR action here today and tomorrow. Of course, as always, Phill, always great to be here on a Saturday afternoon talking with you. Usually it's for a strategy show on a Saturday afternoon, but no, we got a race here today, back-to-back days here at Pocono. And I know you've wrote about this over at Awesemo.com. Like pretty much, today is the day that you're really putting everything into. Then of course we got to wait till after this race concludes to figure out what tomorrow is going to bring here. But I know just kind of in reading what you had over at Awesemo.com, place differential is something to pay attention to here today.
Yeah. DraftKings, with the benefit of knowing starting positions, they've placed us in a position for this race. You're either going all the way up to the top at Kyle Larson at 12.5, because we are approaching probably one of the highest salaries that we've ever had for just a single Cup driver in a Cup race. You're either going with Kyle Larson in a 130 lap race as a dominator, what he's been doing for practically the last 2 months, or you're chasing the place differential that coincidentally got priced up. And yes, you can find a way to combine the two, but then that affects what you're doing down the road with the rest of your lineup. So, it's not so much of an issue on FanDuel, because there's only 13 points available for leading laps today in the race. So it does lead itself to de-emphasizing Kyle Larson and his dominator points and placing more emphasis on finishing position and place differential. But here on DraftKings, we are between a rock and a hard place, trying to figure out just which path to go.
Of course, we always talk about how many dominators you're in here. You mentioned about how many laps we have here today. Are you thinking single dominator build today?
Yeah. For one, it's all we've had for the last month. It doesn't matter if we've got a 300 lap, a 400 lap race. That's all we've been getting, just because of how good the drivers have been, namely Kyle Larson. So what's going to happen when we only have 130 laps at a track that demands horsepower with these long straightaways? Well, God, it seems like we are definitely lining up for a single dominator build. Traditionally here, the Pocono races have always, well, not always, they've been 160 lap races for the better part of the last decade or so. But because this is a doubleheader, we're getting shortened down to 130 laps today, 140 laps tomorrow. So yeah, anything outside of a single dominator build, you're taking too many darts, too many chances at people to lead laps, especially with options like Chase, Truex, Blaney, throw in Keselowski in there, all these guys up at the top who have place differential potential.
Of course, let's get into those top salaries. So the drivers that are 10K and above over on DraftKings. Of course, be sure to, if you're liking what you're hearing here and you're not subscribed also on YouTube, be sure to do that. Got a ton of great shows for you each and every day. Later on today, 6:15 p.m. each time, we've got MLB Live Before Lock, 8 p.m. each time. NBA Live Before Lock to get you ready for today's slate. And of course, give us a thumbs up. We always do appreciate that. But make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know when a new show is live here on the channel. But looking at this top tier, so we already mentioned about Kyle Larson, 12,500 on DraftKings, 14,500 over on FanDuel. Chase Elliott starting 29th, 11,000. Martin Truex Jr. starting 15th, 10,700. Ryan Blaney starting 27th, 10,200. And Kyle Busch starting 5th, 10,100. Let me just start with Kyle Larson. You already kind of talked about that a little bit. Let me talk about from the cash aspect. How do you avoid Kyle Larson in cash?
If you're avoiding Kyle Larson today on DraftKings Cash, you are taking this road that he's not going to lead at least half or more of this race. You're saying that he's going to lead laps, and he may lead the first segment. And, and we have seen some kind of crazy things here at Pocono with pit strategy, but you are taking the route saying that Kyle's going to lead, let's just say 40, maybe 50 laps, not win the race. And then the combo of probably Elliott and Blaney both pick up enough place differential that they either outright outscore him or they become better plays when you look at fantasy point per dollar. So I think that's really the only route that you're taking on DraftKings Cash where you don't have Larson in a cash lineup, is you don't truly think that he's going to lead at least 60 plus or more of these laps today.
In terms of, you mentioned about place differential, and the two guys that immediately stick out to me in this tier become Chase Elliott, 29th, Ryan Blaney, 27th. They're separated by $800. Is there one you prefer over the other?
If we're talking strictly cash, give me Blaney just because of that $800 savings. I am doing my darndest to not go below Ryan Newman at all this week. If I can stay above Ryan Newman at 5,900 in all of my lineups, then I'm pretty pleased with that. So going up to Elliott for that extra $800, that might mean that in a lineup, okay, I'm looking at LaJoy, I'm looking at Anthony Alfredo or Michael McDowell. So for just strictly for cash purposes, I will take Blaney. But the fact is that Elliott has a much higher ceiling than Blaney at this point right now. You look at the history, Elliott's got a couple of top 5 finishes, 4 top 10 finishes in the last 6 races here. Meanwhile, Blaney, a bunch of 10th through 12th place finishes. So if that's what we're looking at again, then yeah, Elliott's got the higher floor because of more finishing position points. You look at this season, Blaney does have a win in this package at Atlanta, but that was a late race win where he took the lead over Kyle Larson after Larson's tires finally gave out. But Elliott is, especially consistency wise, you look at the last couple of races, Elliott's got a 5th at Kansas and a 2nd at Charlotte. Meanwhile, Blaney, since that win at Atlanta, has gone 21st at Kansas and 13th at Charlotte. So, if we're just talking, you need a floor play, you're needing these place differential points, Blaney is the guy. But when it comes down to tournaments, Elliott is the guy that I prefer, even though there's that $800 gap, just simply because I think Elliott has so much more higher of a ceiling today.
Of course, the other two in this tier, Martin Truex Jr. starting 15th. So you do got a little bit of place differential there, but Kyle Busch starting 5th. You don't have place differential there. Can Kyle Busch be a dominator?
Yeah. Kyle won back-to-back races here back in the fall race of 2018 and then the spring race of 2019. His finishes after that went 9th. Then you come to the first the first race would have been the doubleheader here last year would have been a 5th, and then you've got a 38th. I believe he wrecked out in that race. But overall, he's run really, really well here. He just nearly won the trucks race just 30 minutes before we went live on air. Outside of Larson, Busch has been the best driver in this 550 horsepower package. In fact, he has a better average finish in these 5 races than does Larson. The problem is those dominator points have not been there. He's only averaging 5.6 laps led per race and 14.2 fastest laps per race in these 5 races with the low horsepower package. So yes, he can do it. The viability of him outscoring Larson, I'm not there, but with a $2,500 discount, the route that Busch needs to hit to be optimal versus what Larson needs in so few laps, it's a whole lot easier. It's a whole lot easier for Busch.
Of course, if you're not a member of Awesemo Plus and you want to get a peek about what is behind the paywall, today's free premium data and tools include MLB player rankings and NBA player rankings. Also, we had MMA fighter rankings, but that card has already started. But if you do want to get a little peek about what's behind the paywall, that is our free content over at awesemo.com. Now, when we go on to tier number 2, this will be the drivers in the 9K and 8K range. By the way, if you do have any any questions about today's race, line those up in YouTube or in our Slack channel. We'll get to those as we do go on. But in this tier 2, we have got Denny Hamlin, 9,700, bet starting 10th. Brad Keselowski starting 18th, 9,500. Kevin Harvick starting 3rd. He's 9,300. William Byron starting 2nd, 9,000. Joey Logano starting 4th at 8,800. Alex Bowman starting 13th, 8,600. Kurt Busch starting 8th, 8,400. Christopher Bell starting 9th, 8,200. And Chris Buescher starting 25th. He is at 8,000. Let me just start off because JJT already saying go Byron. So let's start off with William Byron starting 2nd, 9,000 on DraftKings, 11,500 over on FanDuel.
I have consumed a lot of content today, and once I got done watching some videos, listening to some podcasts, and reading some articles, that's when I tweeted out this morning, whatever you think Byron's ownership is going to be today, just bump it up, because everybody is touting him. Everybody is recommending Byron. Everybody likes Byron. So whatever sneakiness you think there is in rostering Byron, you're going to get sorely disappointed when those numbers come out, because everybody is on him. And likewise, it's like everybody's reading off of the same memo this week. Denny Hamlin has gotten incredibly popular as well among all of the articles and the podcasts and the videos that I've written. But back to Byron, I wrote in Gas and Go this week that if it's not going to be Larson, it's gonna be Byron. Like, we're getting the same speed, we're getting the same basically the same horsepower when it comes down to speed. Larson's been averaging nearly 63 fastest laps per race, but then there's Byron holding steady at 2nd. It's less than half of what Larson's been doing, but he's been averaging 27.4 fastest laps per race. In this package, no finish outside of the top 10. He's got the win all the way back at Homestead. He's just been incredibly consistent this year. And then this is a track that he has run pretty well at. His last couple of finishes here at Pocono goes 7th, 14th, 4th, 9th, 16th, 18th. So you're taking a track that he's done pretty well at here before. He's led some in the past, and now we've got this competitive advantage that Chevrolet seems to have. It's wheels up for him. You've got a $9,000 price tag on DraftKings. It's spectacular. I mean, it's not a path that we really like to go down in a race with only 130 laps, but there is a lot of viability in going Larson plus Byron in your tournament builds this week.
When you look at this tier, so we've got 3 drivers in this tier who are all starting within the top 4. The other 2 that we haven't mentioned, Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano. So Logano, $200 cheaper than William Byron. Harvick, $300 more expensive than Byron. So as you look at Kevin Harvick and Joey Logano, obviously the path to potentially getting in front of whether it's Byron or Larson is there, but do you want to go there as potential dominators?
Harvick, it's the same story week after week. He's a pretty safe bet for a top 5 or a top 10, but anything beyond that, like you can't count on him to lead laps. It's because of that. Like, if I'm looking here at Monkey Knife Fight, the more or less for him is 17.5 points. Now remember that you only get 0.1 points for a lap led, and then basically that let's just say that he doesn't lead any laps, because that's what the path that he's been taking this year. That 17.5 means that you're looking at him to finish 3rd or better. I just honestly don't think that that's what we're going to be getting from Harvick today. If we look at what he's done so far in this package, you've got a 5th at Homestead, a 20th at Las Vegas, the 10th at Atlanta, you've got a 2nd at Kansas, and then you've got a 10th at Charlotte. So yeah, he's got a couple of top 5s in there, but God, this race, it feels so much like this is going to be a Chevrolet centric top 5, top 10, and I really don't know where that's going to put Harvick, and especially with him starting 3rd, even if he does lose a couple of spots with no dominator points in his bag, that's really going to kill his potential. Logano, it's the weird flip where him and Keselowski have seemingly decided that one of them is going to be good in the high horsepower package and the other one's going to do better in the low horsepower package. This is the week that if you're looking to play Keselowski in tournaments, I would get back on board with that because he's done so much better in the low horsepower package. The same cannot be said for Logano, so I'm definitely not looking at Logano. And another guy that's starting within this top 10 is Kurt Busch. Kurt finally had a good race. He had a good race at Nashville, finds himself starting in the top 10, but Kurt's in such an impossible spot to be a value play this week because you're not betting on him to get to the lead unless there's something wonky that they do with pit road cycling. So much, so many more better, faster drivers in front of him, and he really doesn't have any place differential that you can see him gaining. So, in this range, it really does come down to, I think I can play Denny as a dominator, but I'm afraid of what that ownership is gonna look like. Byron definitely, but he's in that same boat as Hamlin because of his ownership. I really don't want to play Harvick because I don't trust him as a dominator. I don't trust Logano as a dominator. I don't trust Kurt Busch as a dominator. The last guy that's kind of standing in this boat that's a tough play is Alex Bowman. He's got a little bit of place differential. I don't know if I can trust him as a dominator, but at 8,600, there is still something there to get, basically to juice out of this that will make him a play. And quite frankly, if you are afraid like me that Byron's ownership is going to approach 25-30%, just go down $400 to Bowman.
Man, I feel like you were watching the MMA show a little earlier with the trust, do not trust list. That's like a go-to line for us. I mentioned a question about Brad Keselowski that we did get from JJT. He says, do you think you can play Keselowski? It just seems like he's either tanking or they're giving him the third best equipment at Penske.
Ooh, I love me a good conspiracy theory because man, I don't even know if Alex Jones would touch that. As this year goes along, we keep getting more and more confirmation that Keselowski is going to be in the 6 next year. And allegedly right now, Penske and Keselowski are not on good speaking terms. Like it's strictly a business relationship. So could I see Penske saying, yeah, he's leaving anyway at the end of the year. He doesn't need the best stuff. Well, by God, sure. I mean, there was a scenario a couple of years ago where Joe Gibbs knew that Matt Kenseth was in the last year of his deal. Retiring at the end of the year was not a threat to win the championship. And Kyle Busch came out and said, oh yeah, Matt's getting the crap equipment out of it, all 4 drivers, which was quite the shocking thing to come out and publicly say. I'm sure Gibbs was happy about that, but is that something that we could be seeing from Penske? Sure. I mean, it's on the table, but I mean, you look at Keselowski's numbers here, no finish worse than 11th in the last 4 races. Actually, he only has 1 finish outside of 11th in the last 3 years, and that was a wreck in the fall race of 2018. He's consistently been a top 5, a top 10 driver at this track. Like I talked about, if you're looking for a package to get Keselowski, it's in this package. And now he actually has a little bit of place differential. And here's the sobering thing is that if we didn't have Elliott and Blaney starting where they're at, we probably would be in discussion about Keselowski in cash because of where he's starting and his potential where he's going to finish. But because of those 2 guys and where they're starting, Keselowski's just sitting on the board here as a GPP play. I like Keselowski this week.
We've talked about how important place differential is going to be in terms of our roster construction. So when you look at this tier, outside of Brad Keselowski, the other guy that has improvement for place differential is Chris Buescher, starting 25th, 8,000 on DK, 7,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I really like Chris Buescher. In fact, in Gas and Go, I put him down as a core play. Like he's a guy that if you're building a single entry or a 3 entry, yes, he is going to be chalky, but I think there's just so much upside built into Buescher this week that you can't get away from playing him. This was a track that when he was in worse equipment at JTG Doherty, he was perennially like basically a top 15 driver. And now you flash forward to this year, all of the BC squads, as we would call them, have made their gains in the 550 horsepower package. Roush is no different. Buescher, his finishes have been steadily increasing in this package. 19th at Homestead, then 14th at Las Vegas, and then 7th at Atlanta, 8th at Kansas, 8th at Charlotte. String of top 10s. We know the speed is there. We know the performance is there. This is a track that he's run well at. I would not look to it as a corollary in any way, but you can go back to, I believe it was the late summer race of 2016, and Buescher won that race because of fog, of all things, shortening that race. So the place differential is there. Yes, he's priced up this week because of that place differential, but I think he's easy to get in. Remember, you are at the very most, you're jamming in one dominator, and in that scenario, it's easy to get in a seemingly overpriced Buescher at 8K.
Of course, if you want to get access to all the great premium tools and data we have over Awesemo.com, sign up for an Awesemo weekly pass. You can get that for $29.95. Gives you access to ownership projections, player projections, top driver tools, so much more. Get you access to everything we have over at Awesemo.com. And if you're just looking for a NASCAR weekly pass, you can get that for $9.95. I mean, hell, we got 2 races over the next 24 hours. So you get 2 races here in a week, and you can really line this one up great for you here. So that Awesemo NASCAR weekly pass is $9.95. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Let's move into tier number 3. This will be drivers in the 6K and 7K range. So we've got Tyler Reddick starting 16th, Austin Dillon starting 12th, Eric Amarola starting 11th, Matty D starting 21st, Chase Briscoe 28th, Ross Chastain 6th, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 7th, Daniel Suarez 14th, Eric Jones 22nd, Cole Custer 26th, Ryan Preece 31st, Bubba Wallace 20th, and Corey LaJoie number 23. I mentioned a question we got a little earlier from Jeremy Gamble. He said, Eric Jones, best 6K besides Chase Briscoe?
Oh, I really do like Eric Jones, even though the numbers that everyone has seen in the race sheets, those 4 top 5 finishes out of his last 5 races here. Remember, that was in Joe Gibbs equipment. I do like Jones, but I think I want to say my favorite, but the driver that I find myself rostering the most in this 6K range is Cole Custer. You get a little bit more place differential with Custer. You're getting a better, what should be, quite frankly, better equipment. Custer is a former Pocono winner 2 years ago in the Xfinity Series. Oddly enough, his teammate won this race last year for Stuart Haas. So if you're playing the Xfinity race tomorrow, if you're looking for just the oddest corollary to pick out of the left field, Riley Herbst, he's in that Stuart Haas equipment. They've won the last 2 races. Why not go with Riley? But for today in that 6K range, I do like Eric, but I think I like Custer just because he has a little bit more. He has a little bit more place differential. Plus, in the 2 races last year in this car, they were both top 20 finishes.
I want to mention 2 drivers in this tier that are starting in the top 10. That would be Chastain and Stenhouse Jr. So they're starting 6th and 7th. Price point $6,800, $6,600 respectively. I guess the question is, what is the path to them being optimal at where they're starting at?
This is a story that it's basically the same for Eric Almirola and Austin Dillon, who are a little bit more expensive. It's, can they hold position? And this is a track that can become tough to pass at. So if they can just merely hold position, and since they're starting up front, there's a chance that they'll have some access to some fastest laps. If they can hold position, then the path is there. But God, the thing that has got Chastain and Stenhouse up against the wall, besides starting in the top 10, is look at where everybody else is starting compared to where they start. You've got Briscoe starting 28th. You got Matty D starting 21st. Daniel Suarez is going to be a little bit of a tougher pill for people to swallow in tournaments because he starts 14th. But then you've got, like I said, Jones and Custer. They are going to be the lowest owned out of all of these guys because of that starting position, and they've definitely got the toughest path to doing so. But can they do it? Yes. We're talking about 2 Chevy drivers in B or C equipment. They different package, but they were able to race their way through the field, have top 10 finishes. If you're looking for one, like, you don't want to roster both because that seems like way too much chance of things going haywire with those guys in your lineup, then God, Chastain's on a roll. Chastain is on a roll. He's got a very fast car. He's always willing to take chances. And I think that if you're going to pick one of these guys to use as GPP leverage to get off of these chalkier plays, why not Chastain?
In terms of this, obviously you've got several drivers who are starting, 20th or back. So you got Matty D 21st, Briscoe 28th. We mentioned about Jones, Custer 26th, Priest 31st, Wallace 20th, Corey LaJoie 23. Any of these guys really stick out to you of, like, you say, you know what, in this price range, I think they're a pretty solid play?
Yeah, we already talked about Custer, and I think Briscoe is basically in that same boat, even though you're paying a little bit more. Generally, I'm not that excited about playing Matty D, especially the role that he's been on. But this is a track that he's been fairly competent at in worse equipment. His last 4 finishes have gone 17th, 17th, and then last year 13th and 6th. So if this is more about driver history at this track than current performance, then that gives me some hope for Matty D. And God, the rest of these guys, like Ryan Preece starts 31st, and I really don't know what his theoretical upside is. I think you're maybe scratching the surface of maybe a 21st or a 20th place finish. But quite frankly, all of these guys are guys that could be in your player pool. I like the theoretical upside of Suarez kind of doing what he's been doing the last couple of weeks, which is starting in this mid-range, working his way into the higher teens or even into the single digits like he did last week at Nashville, and becoming optimal just by virtue of a little bit of place differential and finishing position. Like, if you're high on Austin Dillon and Eric Almirola this week, there's no reason why you shouldn't be just as high on Suarez, who comes in at a little bit cheaper with just a hair more place differential.
Of course, mentioned some tweets from Bob Packrass. Cole Custer will go to the back of the field. He failed tech 2 times. He did pass on the 3rd occasion. Then the other tweet that I wanted to bring up here that I just saw, kind of on this race. The race is set to start at 3:19 p.m. Eastern time. 3 stages 25, 52, and 53. Competition caution on lap 16, 6 tire sets, 6 set tires and fuel, 39 to 43 laps. So just kind of throw a little bit out there. Of course, we are sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. Of course, with Monkey Knife Fight, you are in charge. Their player prop contest. You got to check that out over at monkeyknifefight.com. And when you sign up and you use that promo code Awesemo, Monkey Knife Fight has an instant first match deposit of up to $100. So be sure to check out Monkey Knife Fight. And of course, they've got their NASCAR contest. It's all about more or less over there. And it's all about fantasy points over there. You can see it there on the screen about some of the contests that you can play over there. And, in terms of how many points they'll get. So be sure to check out monkeyknifefight.com. Download it there in the app store. As I mentioned, be sure to use that promo code Awesemo for an instant first match deposit of up to $100. Let's move into the final tier here, tier number 4. So these drivers are underneath 6,000. So we've got Justin Yaley, 34, starting 34th, Ryan Newman starting 19th, Michael Bindau starting 17th, Anthony Alfredo, 24th, James Davison, 36th, Cody Ware, 35th, Josh Bilicki 33rd, BJ McCoy 32nd, Quinn Hoff 37, who I think kind of screwed all of our days last week, Garrett Smithley 30th, and Timmy Hill starting 30th. I'll tell you, I normally never check my NASCAR scores just because, you just can't look at the points because it's going to change dramatically. Yeah. But I checked it like, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes into the race. And I'm going, that's not good. That's not good. But of course, last week he allowed you to get to many other people. And I know there was a question earlier that Jay had mentioned about Timmy Hill, 38th. He's the bottom of the barrel, 4,500. Do you want to go? Is there a low point for you here on DraftKings or over on FanDuel that you just don't want to? There's a cutoff point for you.
Yeah, if it's FanDuel, and quite frankly, it's the same racer. If it's on FanDuel, I probably don't want to go any lower than Ryan Newman at 5,300, and quite frankly, Cole Custer is only $200 more. So if you wanted to have your cutoff line at Cole Custer at 5,500, that's fine. But on DraftKings, yeah, I am doing my darndest in tournaments to not dip below Ryan Newman. There's just such little upside this week to these drivers, unless this race is going to turn into just a nasty wreck fest full of attrition. These guys are their upside is so very, very capped. I mean, there's a good chance that they're not going to get lapped early, but the matter of the fact is that this track demands horsepower. It demands performance, and these guys starting in the 30s with the equipment that they have, there's a good chance that's where they're going to be. That's where they're going to get stuck all day. In fact, if people have the race sheets, they can turn over to the heat map, and you could look there and see where drivers starting 30th and beyond have typically finished at this race over the last 6 races. And I mean, you're not seeing a lot of movement. And yes, you're seeing guys that have found their way into the top 10, but what is that? That's inversions from last year, drivers, wrecking out in the first race and then having to start like whoever it was that finished the race in 30. They finished 38th in the first race, then they raced their way back into third by the second race. So we're not talking about equal competition here. I just think there's just so little likelihood that these drivers are going to do anything. And plus, I talked about it before, in a race where you're either going after nothing but place differential or you're rostering one dominator, you don't have to dip below you don't have to get into this range to make lineups work. The only scenario, and I even shudder to bring this up, if you have the gravitas to go Larson, Elliott, Blaney, that's going to leave you 3 drivers in the mid 5K range. If you don't have any bias towards last week, you can go back to Quinn Hoff. You can play him. He's 4,700, and then that will give you enough leverage to finish off the other 2 drivers. Like, just go ahead and stick Ryan Newman in there, and then you're probably not feeling too bad about your last guy in. So more or less this week, if you can avoid going lower than Ryan Newman at 5,800 on DraftKings, and he's even cheaper for tomorrow's race for whatever silly reason, I think he's down to 5,500 for the Sunday race, I would try my best to stay above 5,800 on DraftKings.
Of course, if you do have any questions about these drivers, be sure to hit those up right there in our YouTube chat or over in Slack as well. And Rep asking about Michael McDowell starting 17th, 5,600.
Okay, let's talk about McDowell. History here, he has a single top 10 finish. It was kind of out of the blue. Of course, McDowell definitely peaked last year for whatever reason it was. He had a really good season. He finished 8th in that first Pocono race, but then he was the first guy to wreck out in the second race, and he finished 40th. You turn over to the 550 horsepower package here. McDowell's numbers. Yeah. He's, quite frankly, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't think I realized that he had been running this consistently. Like, if my numbers are correct, he doesn't have a finish outside of 20th place this year in this package. So, by God, if he's gonna give you that same thing today, and more or less just hopefully hold position, yeah, I mean, sure, get on board with that. I mean, take back what I said. If you need to save a little bit more money than Newman, and you find yourself with McDowell, yeah, roll with it.
Mentioned a question over in Slack from Mr. Moneybags. He says, I'm looking for 2 drivers under 5,300 for a DraftKings GPP. If you had to pick 2, who would they be? Also, he says, are we using the same strategy in tomorrow's race as of today?
Tomorrow's race, folks, that will be totally in flux. Basically, wherever drivers finish 21 through 39 is where they'll start tomorrow, and then everybody 1st through 20th will get inverted. So that's why DraftKings inflated the price of drivers that they're anticipating to finish in the top 5 today, so that they have higher salaries for tomorrow. But oh, sweet Lord, below 5,300 here on DraftKings. I've already talked about how he makes some sense, and in that same light, Lord. Timmy Hill gives you place differential, but I never want to play a driver for Carl Long. It seems like they absolutely have the worst equipment out of everybody. So if we're looking in this range, God, give me either James Davison or Cody Ware. They are probably the exact same driver this week.
Of course, if you do have any questions, be sure to put those in our chat right now. We got about 20 minutes here left in the show. Of course, one of the things we always love to see is those screenshots when you do cash some winners, and you can be a part of the Awesemo Hall of Fame when you are rocking that Awesemo avatar on your DFS profile. Of course, if you're not doing that, you can do that by downloading the avatar at awesemo.com/avatar. And when you place in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 contestants, and you tweet your wins to @Awesemo HOF, you'll win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Only 1 free month can be awarded to a user per calendar year. Of course, some of the latest entries in terms of the Awesemo Hall of Fame include Tommy Nation going in there, Eric in NBA, also Jake winning in NHL as well. So you can check that out right there. You see it right there on the screen. Congratulations to everyone going in there to the Awesemo Hall of Fame. Matthew getting in there as well. You see Jake's win there in NHL. Eric, of course, I do shows with NBA as well. So that's a great analysis we have here. You see all the winnings there. We want to see you a part of the Awesemo Hall of Fame with your NASCAR wins here today. Do want to mention some other questions that have come in throughout the show. Mention Anthony asking about Alex Bowman or William Byron on DraftKings. Of course, we talked about both those 2 drivers a little earlier on the show.
Yeah. I'm just anticipating such crazy ownership for Byron, just based on how much he's been touted this week for this race. So I'm going to say, for the sake of ownership, and probably also because Bowman has 11 more spots to gain and he's cheaper, I'm going to say go with Bowman.
If you are fading Kyle Larson, last spot, Blaney or Hamlin on a DraftKings single entry GPP.
Okay, Blaney's definitely got the safer floor, and quite frankly, because of all that place differential, and I mean, Hamlin has done really, really well here at this track. He did well here initially when he started off. I believe he won both races as a rookie. And then the track got repaved. He didn't do so good, and now it's got some weathering on it, and he's excelled. His last 3 finishes here have been 1st, 2nd, and 1st. With Larson starting up front, there's no real, Larson and Byron. There's no real guarantee about Hamlin getting to the lead, when that happens, how much he'll lead. Like Hamlin could be a really good like real life play, end up with a top 3 finish, but barely get any dominator points. So for that, I'm gonna say side with the safety of Blaney.
Next up, Wyatt asks, how will Alfredo do today?
Alfredo starts 24th, and going back to that $5,300 question, if you've got the extra $100, just go up to Alfredo. He's going to finish 10 to 15 spots better than probably any of the rest of these schmucks down here. Alfredo, we don't have any track history for him in the series, but what we do have are his 5 races in this package, and Alfredo's doing what you would basically expect a rookie to do in C to D level equipment. 24th, 24th, 27th, 23rd, 25th. So you're basically expecting him to give you another 20th through a 25th place finish. At 5,400, that's not going to pay the bills in terms of getting 5X, but it's going to probably end up being the highest scoring play out of everybody below McDowell and Newman.
When you look at the salaries on DraftKings and FanDuel, is there maybe someone on FanDuel you prefer a little bit more because of salary than on DraftKings?
The guy that has caught my eye is Busher. Like, there is a $1,000 gap between his FanDuel salary and his DraftKings salary. So that $7,000, like I was talking about earlier, there's no reason why you don't have Busher in a lineup here on DraftKings with, whether you're going place differential or a single dominator build. And it's just the same here on FanDuel at that $7,000 salary, when your number one worry this week is maximizing drivers with place differential who have finishing position upside.
Of course, if you do have any questions, be sure to line those up there in the chat. Just kind of trying to think about some other drivers that maybe we haven't really talked much. I don't think we talked much about Christopher Bell, who's starting 9th at 8,200 on DraftKings.
Bell is really interesting. We go back what we were talking about with who was it? Eric Jones. Yeah, Eric Jones in his 4 top 5 finishes here when he was in this car driving for JGR. So we put Bell in this car when Bell was in the 95, which was loosely affiliated with Joe Gibbs last year. In the first race, he finished 4th. This is a track that Gibbs has run extremely well at. I believe they've won 6 of the last 7 races here. You look in the trucks, the truck series, the Toyotas have, I believe now they've won 3 or 4 straight races here. So if we're looking at that corollary of the car, how Bell's done here, and then you've got Kyle Busch's former crew chief here who he won a couple of races with. I mean, that really makes Bell an intriguing tournament play here. The pause that you do have is that in this package, Bell has just kind of been everywhere. He only has 1 finish better than 20th place all season in this package, but Pocono is such a unique thing. I mean, it is literally a triangle race racetrack that measures 2.5 miles. It is such its own unique thing. So if you wanted to take this perspective that I'm not going to worry so much about these 550 horsepower package stats because of just how unique Pocono is in of itself, then yeah, that really lends itself to playing Bell in tournaments this week.
FanDuel cash question coming in over from our Slack channel: Kozlowski or Blaney?
Yep. Go with the 12 more place differential points. Go with Blaney. If your cash lineup on FanDuel doesn't start Elliott Blaney, then you're really looking down a hole. You need to start with those 2 and then go from there.
I just think the whole question, because I was literally just putting in my multiplier lineup, is I think it really just starts. Are you putting Kyle Larson in your lineup or no? I just feel like that's like the first question you got to ask yourself.
Yeah, it comes down to, once again, with 130 laps, what is his upside? Yes, it's a good chance that he's probably going to win this race, but how many fastest laps does he knock down in the process of doing that? If this race looks anything like the last month and a half for Larson, thank God he's probably going to end up leading over 100 laps in this race. And Pocono is already a track that can be a pretty boring race because so much of this is just is straightaways. But if Larson does what he's been doing, then this race is going to be even more boring, and it's going to be a tough sell for NBC trying to make this an interesting broadcast this afternoon. But with a competition caution, early stage cautions, and the fact that this track is very, very fair to tires. Like there shouldn't be any reason why anybody comes down pit road for the first competition caution to get tires. It's just not going to happen. Like there is very, very little tire fall off. So, we could very well see somebody just swing for the fences with a setup or a pit strategy. And in that case, yeah, Larson's had a very fast car and had no problem moving through the field. But I mean, there's no guarantee that if somebody gets off sequence and puts some puts a gap between Larson, puts him back in dirty air, that Larson's just going to continue to do what he did. Plus, we've got this whole silly scenario that we haven't even talked on, and it feels like just so much conjecture. But if there really is something to this, Chevy's using Bondo to save weight on the front ends of the cars, then that will manifest itself today, and necessarily Joe Gibbs and Penske will perform better this week compared to the Chevys, namely Hendricks. And if that happens, then who's to say that, yeah, Larson's got clean air, he's got the starting position, but if he doesn't have that competitive advantage that he's may or may not have had for the last month and a half, then he may not dominate it like everyone's expecting. I mean, there's just so much up in the air because of something that we really don't even know if it's true or not.
Yeah, of course. One of the biggest edges in sports betting is to always find the best line, and you can do that right now by going to oddshopper.awesemo.com, as betting lines are always changing. So you got to check it out. Great tool, whether, whatever sport may be, we got you covered over there at oddshopper.awesemo.com. Mention a question from Jay Lopez. He goes, thoughts on Chase Briscoe starting 28th, 6,900 on DraftKings, 5,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah. Won this race last year in the Xfinity Series race. He's been so in this package. Average finish of 21st with an average running position of 25th. Not really any dominator points. I think your expectation with Briscoe is that he's going to start 28th. He's probably going to race his way to maybe 16th or 17th, and it's not going to blow you away in tournaments, but he gives you such a solid floor in cash games that you just go ahead and play him.
Next question we have here from Alan: Bubba or Newman, more DraftKings points?
I am going to go with Newman. Newman has been way more consistent here. His last 5 finishes have all been top 20 finishes, and that's across different manufacturers, different teams. Meanwhile, Bubba at Richard Petty, 20th, 22nd, 22nd, 21st, and then his first 2 races here, 33rd and 38th. We are not seeing the Joe Gibbs effect on this car. Like, surely this is basically Joe Gibbs' car number 5, but whatever is going into this car, Bubba hasn't been able to take advantage of it. And yeah, I think perhaps if this was the 750 horsepower package, we might be looking to Bubba a little bit more, but I think you're looking at Bubba basically finishing where he starts today.
Logano or Harvick?
Neither. I don't want to play either guy. I don't like either guy potential as a dominator. Yes, they're cheaper, but it feels like they're gonna fall back. They're gonna lose a couple of spots. If you're forcing me to say I have to play one guy, give me Harvick. He's probably a lot safer of a bet for a top 5 or a top 10 finish. Meanwhile, Logano has not been good in this package this season.
I mean, here's the thing. I was just thinking about Larson is, you can save. I mean, we're talking about a 1,500 price difference between him and Chase Elliott. I mean, you're talking about, over 2,000 between him and Blaney. It just makes me wonder how much of your thought process has got to be, you know what? Hopefully this doesn't come back to bite me, but maybe I just save the money and not pay up for Kyle Larson, even though the guy's been on a tear.
Yeah. That, quite frankly, that's the approach that I have found myself taking in cash, is that I built a place differential lineup, and then I built a Larson plus one of these top guys, because it's hard to parse which scenario is going to end up being the optimal route. And yeah, quite frankly, if you want to take that path to lineup construction where you just say I think the route for Larson to being optimal is so tough today because of the lack of laps and because of the guys below him with all their place differential. I mean, yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. We haven't talked about it a lot, but there's a lot of theory going into this, that treating this race almost like it's a road race. Mm-hmm. And in that scenario, it's super, super tough for the pole sitter, especially at this salary, to be optimal. But we go back to Sonoma. Larson started on the pole. Larson led the most laps, and he won the race, and Larson was optimal. So
yeah, it's just, I think that's where the question becomes here. Jay Lopez, I kind of did laugh about his comment. Will Quinn Houff make it at least 2 laps?
Fingers crossed. Hey, we had a wreck in the truck race as they were coming across the start finish line before they even left the front stretch. So who's to rule out anything?
Blitz ask, this is a DraftKings question. Corey LaJoie or Ryan Newman?
Okay. LaJoie has a little bit more place differential, and LaJoie has been running like super consistent. He's been giving you back-to-back top 20 finishes. Newman's cheaper, but if this is just a pure, head-to-head, I might be tempted to pay a little bit more for LaJoie and his place differential, because I think you're probably looking at similar scenarios finish-wise from both LaJoie and Newman. So in that case, I'll take the guy with more place differential.
Of course, I appreciate everyone that's been watching us live here on YouTube. Be sure to line up those questions before we get out of here for Live Before Lock. Of course, if you are not subscribed to also right here on YouTube, be sure to do that. Just hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, so you know when a show is live here on the channel. And as always, we do appreciate those thumbs up. Of course, if you ever have any questions, you can hit us up right there in the comment section on Slack as well. Byron, or it says K Bush, so well, there's 2 of them, so I'm not sure which one you meant there, Spud. Maybe throw a little mission of who it might be. I'm going to assume Kurt, since they're $200 apart and start next to each other. Yeah, Kurt, I worry about his upside today, because I don't think he's going to be a potential lap leader. I think he's going to basically finish where he starts, whereas Bell's got car history, he's got crew chief history. This is a track that he did well at in the Xfinity series. He finished 4th here in worse equipment. Now he gets an equipment upgrade. I don't know if you can count on Bell winning, but a top 5 is definitely within Bell's wheelhouse today. Jay says, can you stack Larson, Byron, Elliott? Will this be a popular stack? I guess the question becomes, what's the rest of your lineup look like?
Whew, yeah. I got a question about that this morning about a 3/4, basically a 3/4 Hendrick stack. And I mean, the scenario makes sense. You're getting Larson and Byron to basically lead all the laps. You're getting Chase for all of his place differential. But yeah, the rest of your lineup, just eyeballing it, you're stuck in the 6K range. And don't be surprised if that's not a chalky build today.
Yeah, I mean, I just know for me, as I was developing my lineups, it really just kind of came to that top end of where I want to go. And then really it just kind of comes down to that low end of, do I really want to get anyone lower than Ryan Newman? I mean, that's kind of where I drew my line at.
Yeah. these guys, and it was brought up about McDowell, and yes, I definitely understand about McDowell, especially if he's going to continue doing what he's done in this package. But everybody else underneath him, but the guys that are starting in the 30s, I don't see them moving out of the 30s or gaining that much place differential. And Alfredo's probably just going to finish where he starts. So the path for these guys to just getting 5X, it's so tough this week.
Yeah, of course, you see the promo we got going on right there at the bottom of the screen. Be sure to take advantage of that. If you are a new member of Awesemo Plus Platinum, get 25% off your first week. Promo code NASCAR live before lock here. Next up, Spud says, what about Kyle Busch? How do you think he is going to do?
I think Kyle is going to be a safe bet for a top 5. The question is what's his likelihood to lead? And this goes back to, if there's any feat to this story about the Chevrolets and the Bondo, then the guy that's the closest to the front that I can really see leading is going to be Kyle Busch. I like him better as a potential lap leader than Harvick, and definitely more than Logano. So Kyle should be that guy that, like, if the Chevys underperform today, then Kyle should be the guy that moves up forward and becomes the dominator in their place.
JJT says, is one Harvick lineup out of 20 too much?
No, that's fine. And I think that's taking the hedge on this. I'm going to beat this horse until it's dead on this Chevrolet story, so that if Harvick if there is feet to it, they come back to the field. Harvick starting close enough, perhaps he can be faster than Busch on the initial run and get out front. And generally, when you get out front here at Pocono and get the clean air, you sail off, and it's hard to reel you back in.
Suarez, Jones, or Preece for a DraftKings GPP. Also, JJ Hawk would like to know some thoughts on Ryan Preece on DraftKings.
Preece starts far enough back that he's safe for cash, but I really don't like his upside in tournaments. He kind of feels like another driver that's going to probably peak out at about 22nd or 23rd. So that leaves us down to Suarez and Jones. Jones is going to be the safer play. I think Suarez has more upside starting where he's at, that he can finish in the top 10. And could Jones find his way into the top 10? Yes, it's theoretical, but in 3 of the 5 races using the 550 horsepower package, his finishes have been 24th or worse. So I'm going to say Suarez.
Of course, lock is coming up here in about 16 minutes from now. So you got to get those lineups in. That is going to do it for NASCAR Live for Lock. Appreciate everyone tuning in here on a Saturday afternoon. Of course, be sure to hit a thumbs up before as you exit out of the show. Phill, anything you want to miss before we get out of here?
Be sure to look tonight on the website. I will have Gas and Go for tomorrow's race up tonight. So for you guys who are looking to try to get your lineups built tonight, get your strategy going, I will have that up tonight, as well as the race sheets updated.
And check that out all over at awesemo.com. So appreciate everyone tuning in here for NASCAR Live for Lock. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Monkey Knife Fight. Use that promo code Awesemo for instant first match deposit of up to $100. Come up here later on today, about 3 hours from now. We got MLB Live for Lock. And then 8 p.m. each time, it'll be NBA Live before Luck. So good luck to everyone today in your DFS lineups. And we will talk to you next week here on the Awesemo NASCAR Strategy / Live Before Lock show.